Last year, Gigabyte's Aero 15X was the poster child for thin, lightweight, and powerful gaming laptops. With the launch of its RTX Max-Q graphics this year at CES 2019, NVIDIA CEO Jensen Huang again wielded an Aero laptop, showing he thinks highly of the product. The combination of performance and lightweight will be tough for rivals to beat. There are some hitches. The benefits of ray tracing are still controversial, and other performance gains are minor. What's more, the next generation is more expensive than ever. It still boggles my mind that so much power fits into such a small size. The Aero 15Y9 weighs just 4.5 pounds, is 19 millimeters thick, and has super tiny bezels. It's very small for a 15.6-inch laptop and easily fits into my Peak Design messenger bag. The drawback with those bezels, however, is the hinge-mounted webcam. It's essentially useless for your video chats unless you elevate the laptop. Otherwise, all your colleagues will see are your beautiful nostrils. Gigabyte must address this in the next model, maybe by doing what Alienware did with the M15. The only RTX 2080 Max-Q laptop that's lighter so far is MSI's 4.2-pound GS65 Stealth. However, that model has a smaller battery, and as you'll soon find out, that makes a big difference. The Aero 15Y has the same ports as before, including Ethernet, USB 3, HDMI, SD, Thunderbolt, headphone, and USB Type-C. There's one exception though. In place of standalone DisplayPort, it has DisplayPort over USB Type-C. That still gives me 4K HDR support as before, but I needed to buy a new cable. It also has the same keyboard with LED lighting and separate number keys. The light touch and short travel suits me well, though it might not be everyone's cup of tea. Gigabyte has improved the touchpad so that it's less stiff, and frankly, it's pretty darn good now. Otherwise, it has exactly the same basic black design as before. That's a good thing because folks seem to like it compared to flashy gaming machines. It's also the kind of laptop you can use in an office without looking like a nerd. Do be careful though. I purchased the Aero 15X last year, and while the aluminum body is solid and stiff, it's easy to scratch the paint. Overall, it's a solid design, so Gigabyte obviously chose to stick with what works. On paper, the Aero 15Y9 is a dream. It comes with a 6-core Intel i9 CPU, a 2TB NVMe SSD, 32GB of RAM, and a 4K AUO display. The star feature is the NVIDIA RTX 2080 Max-Q GPU. Unfortunately, NVIDIA just revealed that the laptop version runs at half the clock speed as the desktop card. That's understandable given power and heat concerns, but it significantly reduces performance. Gigabyte will soon release an Aero 15Y9 with a 1080p 144Hz screen, but the model I'm testing here has a 4K 60Hz display. That limits gaming refresh rates and battery life, but it's better for video editing and graphics. As I'll explain shortly, the RTX 2080 has some significant advantages there. First, let's talk about gaming. Though the base clock is just 735 MHz, the RTX 2080 overclocks up to 1300 MHz during gaming. I was able to play Shadow of the Tomb Raider at 4K HDR resolution at 31 frames per second on average. Both that game and Hitman 2 played very smoothly. When you drop the resolution down to 1080p, games just fly. Shadow of the Tomb Raider ran at 60 frames per second, the maximum for the display, even with HDR on and all the other settings cranked. The laptop gets warm, but not overly so, thanks to dual fans that cool both the CPU and GPU. As for the vaunted ray tracing, you still can't buy any supported games apart from Battlefield 5. I tested that game and yeah, it looks great in some scenes, but as it stands now, the feature is still largely unsupported after nearly 6 months, so you'd have to call it a bust. Overall, gaming performance is just a mild bump over the previous generation GTX 1080 Max-Q, unfortunately. On the other hand, the Aero 15Y is actually great for content creation. For the first time, RTX cards can handle 10-bit HDR and HEVC formats. It can even, incredibly, handle 8K video playback, which is quite a feat for a laptop. I tried this with 10-bit 4K video at 25 frames per second using a Panasonic GH5S. On my Aero 15X, the HEVC encoded video is frankly unusable as it just loads too slowly. While it doesn't exactly fly on the new model, it's fine for my typical projects. And while I'll never work in 8K in the near future, it's nice to know that I can do it. Nvidia promised this and has clearly delivered what seems like an impossible feature. The display itself looks great as it's factory calibrated and covers 100% of Adobe's RGB color gamut. That's helpful for video and graphics and will also let you enjoy movies as the creators intended. The low refresh rates aren't great, but many games do look nice in 4K. If you have a compatible screen, it's also much better for HDR. I can finally play 4K HDR YouTube videos with no stuttering, something I couldn't do on my last gen Aero 15X. The one area where the Aero 15Y falls down is in battery life. It has the same huge 94 watt-hour battery as before, but it only ran for 3 hours in our battery rundown test, compared to 7.5 before. Obviously, powering all those high-end components takes a toll. The 1080p version should do better. There's no doubt that the Aero 15Y9 delivers impressive speed. The problem is that the Model M testing costs $4,000 with prices starting at $2,700. The performance gain over the past generation is simply not worth that. As another option, you can get the Aero 15X9 starting at $2,200 with a respectable RTX 2070 Max-Q GPU and 6-core i7 CPU. We'll have to wait and see the prices for competing laptops like the MSI GS65 Stealth, but they should be comparable. So far, over 40 RTX models from Asus, Dell, HP, and others have been announced, but most have yet to come to market. Unfortunately, the performance bump over the last model is pretty minor. Ray-traced games are still non-existent, so that feature is essentially useless. The problem lies mostly with Nvidia and to a lesser extent Intel. Customers need a more compelling performance update to spend that kind of cash. That said, Gigabyte built an excellent laptop with the tech they had to work with. You might want to wait for competing models to see if they're cheaper, but don't expect miracles. If you already own a powerful laptop, then it's probably not worth the upgrade. But if you're looking for a gaming laptop and have the budget, then I definitely recommend the Aero 15 series.